Um, how um how do you handle in sort of like transition into the new track? How do you cover a lot of the new track, or you just have your rants and raves and kind of move on, or you just like I'm done?
I have watched. I've not really covered a lot of it. I'm. That's the other thing I'm going to start doing that I hadn't done. I'm working with another channel. They're doing Picard season one, and we're reacting to it. And I thought, you know what? It's about time I do that.
Hmm. Okay.
And so I am going to start having some watch parties where I'm actually, it's more of a watch along type thing where uh, people will be able to watch, but it's going to be, it's not going to be on the screen. I'm not that brazen. Um, Nor
Like
do I have the
like this,
technology
this
to do it.
like this knucklehead did last night on Halo, where I got copyright struck like 16 times because I was playing because it was so bad and we're talking over it, but they would still strike it. And then the stream stopped working on and off. I was like, all right, well, that's a learning experience. And I realized that, I am probably ticking off Paramount. I'm not going to get a screener for a Paramount thing anytime soon. So, well, there we go. That's probably part of it. But, it's how they behave like children anyway. I'm not shocked or surprised. So,
No.
people have to know that this stuff runs. Everything is so like-minded in this whole community, like movie reviewers, critics, the newspaper people. They're no different than the Hollywood people. They are treated like, so if the guy works for the newspaper or he works for the radio show or he works for the TV, they're treated like here. And then it's kind of like a tiered system of who you work for, what you do. And they just think that their bowel movements don't stink and they can do no wrong. And if your reviews are different than theirs, they don't even know how to process you.
Mm-mm.
They don't even know how to process you. So I can imagine some of the backlash that you must have been getting by like, okay, Trek is obviously in my name. This is my brand. This stuff is crap. The backlash must have been crazy.
It was, yeah, I to say the least. There were people that were absolutely supportive of that.
That's
When
good.
I speak out against it, there are a few people that have gone, well, if you don't like it, don't talk about it. Well, if you don't like it, don't watch. I mean, there's tons of content out there on YouTube,
Yeah.
you know, um, and there are people, believe it or not, that will hate watch YouTubers.
Oh, I've that actually I think I found a lot more of that before I found this really cool live streamer pop culture genre YouTube niche. Before I found that. And then of course now I've learned like there's whole like the millionaires, right? Like what Hassan Piker, like just these guys are just watching other people's stuff for hours on end and not even doing anything. And I was like, I don't understand what happened with YouTube. This is a complete and again for me the pendulum has swung all over the map so many times with different channels, different things that I've been a part of. Now I'm just like, well, here we go. But I just again, maybe it's the gray hair that we have. We can handle having conversations with people that we don't agree with, and yet that seems
Hmm.
to be something that's off limits now. I have one of my other thesis is we live in a society where you're not supposed to have two thoughts at the same time. And obviously, I deal with more political topics when that first was developed for me. It's like we can't say two things. You can't say, well, this person was evil for doing that. And by the way, there's no good guys to support in this conflict. So I don't know what to say about it. You're not allowed to have two things. If you say one, it contradicts the other. So it's like picking teams. If two teams, if, let's say two basketball teams are playing for the championship, and you don't really care, you're not allowed to do that. You're not. No, you have to pick a team. I don't want to pick a team. I don't care. No, we're going to the game. You have to pick a team. Or I could just have a snack and watch the game and have a good time watching the game and hanging out with you. No, you have to pick a team. Oh, for love of freaking Pete. That's how everything is. Everything is like that. Everything. Captain Trek, you have to like this if I like this. You have to. I like it. So if you don't like it, something's wrong with my analysis. Or
Something's wrong with you
yeah, it's like
because you
let's
didn't
talk
like
about it.
it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah. What didn't you like? And I always find things. I will say that some people exaggerate what they don't like to hate on it, and they
Hmm.
exaggerate things they like to like it more. All of
Oh
that is okay. There's no perfect formula. Who
no,
cares?
the funny thing is, I'll be watching Star Trek, the original series, or any of the other series, and I'll be sitting there watching and going, "Oh," and I can nitpick that. I
Mm,
can nitpick. Oh, that
sure.
shouldn't be going on there. Nah, that's too early in the series for that. That's nah. What's going on? and but I'm having fun. I'm having fun while nitpicking, as opposed to the other stuff where I'm going, oh god, what?
Yeah,
They did
yeah.
what?
Yeah, nitpicking is one thing. So, like for instance, when we were covering Halo 1, I kept asking Loki very specific video game questions. Like, they didn't have any respect for the armor. So the armor is basically just an amalgam of two or three different games. Then there's like a termination code where it's like you have to kill so and so, and there's a termination code that pops up on the screen in his helmet. That's all
Mm-hmm.
made up too. And I'm just like, okay, hold on a minute. They have such little respect for these franchises that the nitpicking becomes a bigger issue because you don't care. You don't care. And if we don't have respect for the bigger issues or the small issues, I don't know what the heck we have left. And that's kind of where the Trek franchise has gotten to, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just Trek either.
Well, it's all the franchise, but we're talking specifically about Trek right now. But
Right.
this is the poisons in the water for all of the franchises. Like, I'm not sure what's safe. We've talked about, and I'll get to that later on with you. Like, what franchises are next? Because if you have a love of a franchise that has not been made into anything, pray right now. You got at least 5 years. Just pray for at least 5 years. We'll have some hope. And I do think that some of the fighting that's taking place may give us some hope. Let me get to Ryan real quick before we leave Trek as a
Go.
topic. He says he loves politics. One of the reasons I like Star Trek and the space battles. But yeah, you know what? To Trek's credit, as a Star Wars nerd, Trek was definitely more political and more interesting in a lot of ways because of that. Especially some of the movie stuff that are not very good. Like some of the stuff that's in some of the movies that are considered the weaker movies, some of the political stuff that's in it makes me think more. It made me think a lot more about politics and stuff because back then I didn't really care about politics. That was much more later in life. But at least when some of those movies were happening, I remember even seeing, Final Frontier and stuff. There's stuff in there. I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about that. I didn't really think about
Mm-hmm.
that. It was at least thought provoking. It was at least thought provoking.
Well, that's the other thing. The political aspects that are in there are not the in your face. Uh, this is right. This if you don't believe this, you're wrong.
Right.
Type of thing. Uh, you the viewer had to decide who's right, who's wrong. Is there a side,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
are these just you know two sides of the same coin that they need to figure out a way to get along?
Yeah. Let me ask you about that because that's always one of my theses too about Next Generation. Because again, I find it so fascinating. I always thought to myself, this is where the left gets it wrong. The political left gets it wrong. Worf would disagree with the plan, and he'd want to be like authoritarian, or he'd want to be volatile or violent or retaliatory, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be like, no, we're not doing that. But instead of like shooting the captain and taking control of the ship, which is pretty much the message that you get in like modern filmmaking, he learned how to deal with it, how you deal with disagreement. He understood chain of command. He understood compromise. And he was also learning like, well, listen, man, there are more than one answers than just violence. I mean, there's more than one answer to this problem. And we were living vicariously through two or three different scenarios most of the time. And I think that was really the brilliance of Trek over the long haul, is these different philosophies and conflicts that they were resolving. We're feeling, as the audience, you're connecting with someone, and that's usually different for different people, and we're seeing different problem solving, different what I couldn't agree more. That is, to me, that's the backbone of the Trek franchise. That's just so great. So
Well, the other thing is they don't really discuss openly in Star Trek is religion,
right.
except in DS9 where they're talking about the Bajorans.
Hmm.
Um, but there's obviously people of faith
Hmm.
in the Star Trek universe. I
Really.
mean, you had the one episode where they were actually having more of a Catholic wedding.
Hmm.
Um, well, it was interrupted before they actually got married, and one of them died. Um, or he died, I should say. And it was there was a religious element to it.
A lot of
And
allegory, a lot of allegory with that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
it unlike today where everything has to be in your face. They gotta shove it there, and it's like, okay, now this is what we think, and if you don't think what we think, you're wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I prefer the subtlety, the the idea that you, the viewer, can decide. You know, we're going to present facts to you. Of course, this is back when they were actually news programs were actually presenting news and not, you know, um,
The
what
message.
the message. Yeah,
Yeah, it is it was definitely a lot more allegorical, a lot more sort of higher level, and leave a lot more interpretation to the viewers without saying this is how it should go. Whereas if we had so let's say the next episode of, I don't know, pick a show, let's say Picard or whatever, they go to a planet and that planet is intolerant of the genders. The message would be, well, we have to change them to be tolerant. We wouldn't just try to understand why or how or whatever. So that's what's different. Whereas OG Trek would be a lot more of like, wow, this is really different than what we're used to, isn't it, Captain? You know, it's like that kind of stuff. So
exactly. I mean, they had that one episode in TNG where they went to a planet where they had no gender,
right. Yep.
and um, you know, it turned out that one of them identified as a woman and was interested in Riker, and then they did the brainwashing thing on her.
Right.
Um, but again, that was not in your face about anything.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and again, a lot more allegorical, a lot more open-minded, and that kind of thing. War Monkey's come in. Hey, War Monkey, how you doing, bud?
Yeah. Right? And I'm not